All right, so let's look at some of the questions we have to answer for our passage, Luck Favors the Prepared. Question 1. Which sentence from the article best supports the idea that the discovery of X-rays helped to improve people's health? All right, so basically a question like this is asking you to evaluate the evidence, and they want you to choose the best evidence. So I'm going to remind you that when you look for the best evidence, that means that there's probably going to be more than one piece of evidence that could work. There's going to be peanut butter cup evidence, and there's also going to be chocolate bar evidence. You want to choose the peanut butter cup evidence. So you need to go through each answer choice and decide which evidence is really actually showing you that X-rays are improving people's health. So you can also use process of elimination. Any evidence that has nothing to do with improving people's health can be eliminated. Answer choice A. After making this discovery, Rottingen decided to investigate the rays further. If he's investigating X-rays further, does that have anything to do with improving somebody's health? B. He tested whether the X-rays would pass through the objects or would be blocked by them. All right, so if he is just testing the X-rays and trying to figure out which objects are actually going to block the X-rays, does that have anything to do with somebody's health? Rontgen's most famous image is the X-ray shadow of his wife Bertha's hand. Again, ask yourself, does this evidence show anything about health? And then finally, doctors quickly realized that they could use X-ray images to look at broken bones. But finally, this last piece of evidence. Do you see anything that connects it to X-rays improving somebody's health? Your best evidence is going to be the evidence that clearly connects to the improvement of people's health. All right, question number 2 is a part A and a part B. Part A, which statement is true about Alexander Fleming's initial understanding of penicillin? All right, so when we see the word initial, we know that initial means your first understanding. So it's kind of like saying somebody's first impression or what they first think of when something happens. So for this question, I'm probably going to have to go back to the passage to figure out exactly what Fleming's initial understanding was, his first reaction. A, he hoped that penicillin would cure certain diseases. B, he was unaware that penicillin would have any effect. C, he was sure penicillin would be a helpful medicine. Or D, he knew penicillin was deadly to some bacteria. All right, again, so I'm pretty sure I have to go back to the passage. So I'm going to go to the section where we have the anecdote about Fleming. And I see that's located in paragraphs 3 and 4. And so I'm going to reread to see if I can figure out what his first reaction was. The discovery of penicillin, which is a medicine used to kill bacteria, is one of the most famous stories of accidental discovery. In the early 1900s, a scientist named Alexander Fleming was trying to find ways to cure diseases and infections. While doing his research, Fleming grew bacteria on special plates called petri dishes. All right, so nothing so far about how he reacted or felt about penicillin, just the fact that he was trying to discover something. One day he noticed a type of mold called penicillin growing on the plate. To Fleming's amazement, the mold killed the bacteria. He discovered that the mold could be used as an antibiotic, which is a medicine that fights bacterial infections. All right, so the first day he saw penicillin, I have the description that he felt amazement. So if I go back, I'm going to look for the answer choice that best matches the text evidence. He hoped that penicillin would cure certain diseases. He was unaware that penicillin would have any effect. He was sure penicillin would be a helpful medicine. He knew penicillin was deadly to some bacteria. Again, I'm looking for the evidence or the answer choice that best matches the fact that he felt amazement. And then for part B, I'm going to choose the 2 pieces of evidence that support whichever answer choice I think is correct from part A. All right, question 3. The author believes that Charles Goodyear was a dedicated scientist who kept improving on his work. Which sentence from the article best supports the statement? All right, so once again, I have a question that's asking me to evaluate evidence and choose the evidence that best supports a statement. The statement I'm looking to support is that Charles Goodyear was a dedicated scientist. So I need to first just think about my prior knowledge. What does it mean for somebody to be a dedicated scientist? How would I know if somebody was dedicated? Well, my understanding of dedicated is somebody who never gives up, who keeps trying, who is persistent. So I'm going to look for any evidence that shows Charles Goodyear being persistent, not giving up, showing dedication. A. Another scientist who made an accidental discovery was Charles Goodyear. All right, so the fact that he's another scientist, does that show him being dedicated? If it has nothing to do with being dedicated, I can always eliminate it. B. He tried to change the rubber in countless ways, but each attempt disappointed him. So if he's trying to change something over and over again in countless ways, he keeps being disappointed, but he doesn't give up. Does that show that he's dedicated? C. One day, Goodyear spilled a mixture containing natural rubber onto a hot stove. All right, so does Goodyear accidentally spilling something onto a stove show dedication? And then finally, D. Goodyear patented a process for making vulcanized rubber in 1844 and then sold his product to manufacturers. So if he finally gets a patent and sells his product, is that dedication or is that showing success? Again, look at each piece of evidence, restate them in your own words, kind of like what I just did. Think about what the evidence is showing you. Think about which evidence really shows somebody who is dedicated, who is not giving up. All right, question 4 is asking us about the central idea. Which of the following best matches a central idea from the text with a detail that supports it? So I just want to remind you that when we look at central idea, we are looking at a sentence that covers all of the important or key significant ideas. We don't want something that's too specific, and we don't want something that's too general. A. Central idea. Many important discoveries are made during experiments. Supporting detail. Doctors began using x-rays to examine injured patients. I also want to think about the title. Titles are always important. They sum up central ideas. This passage is called Luck Favors the Prepared. So does this central idea tie in to that title? I'm going to actually put a question mark, not a check. I don't want you guys to think that I'm telling you that's the right answer. It might not be. Central idea for B. Some important discoveries are not well understood at first. And then our supporting details that artificial sweetener was based on a kind of coal tar. C. Central idea. Some scientists make accidental discoveries that help people. Supporting detail. Penicillin is still used in modern times to save lives. And then D. Central idea. Dedicated scientists may accidentally become great inventors. Supporting detail. Fleming used plates called petri dishes to grow bacteria. Again, I want to think about overall what this passage was about. I know that it was about discoveries. I know that it was about a lot of different scientists or people who were experimenting in their fields. Is it only about the scientist? The title says luck favors the prepared. I don't want to just think about luck. I also want to think about how these people were prepared. Which of these central idea statements really connects to that title and sums up what all the different anecdotes in the article showed us? Okay, let's look at question 5. Vulcanized rubber continues to be an important part of modern products. How does the author illustrate this idea in the passage? A. She lists examples of different uses for vulcanized rubber. B. She tells the story of the invention of vulcanized rubber. C. She compares vulcanized rubber with natural rubber. Or D. She notes the year in which vulcanized rubber was patented. All right, so for a question like this, you definitely want to go back into the passage and you want to find the section where vulcanized rubber is being described. Specifically, we want to look at the part where the author talks about its use in modern products. And so when I go back to the passage, I see that paragraph 8 is where the modern use of vulcanized rubber is mentioned. And as I look at that paragraph, I want to look for the section where I'm going to best see that rubber is still an important part of modern products. One day, Goodyear spilled a mixture containing natural rubber onto a hot stove. The result was the hard, strong rubber he had been seeking. The process resulted in what we now call vulcanized rubber. Goodyear patented a process for making vulcanized rubber in 1844 and then sold his product to manufacturers. Today, all right, that's my signal word. This is talking about modern times. Vulcanized rubber is used in everything from bowling balls to car tires to shoe soles. All right, so now if that's the line that best shows me that vulcanized rubber is still being used in modern products, what exactly is the author doing to give me that information? Is she listing the examples of the different uses? Is she telling me a story? Is she comparing? Or is she noting the year that the rubber was patented? So I'm looking at this specific line that I know already is where I learn about it and its use in modern products. Which one of these techniques is being used in this line? All right, question 6 is asking us to summarize. Which of the following best summarizes the article? So I just want to remind you that you're going to choose your summary based on the one that covers all the major ideas from a passage. If any of the answer choices are just focusing on the beginning part of the article, maybe just one paragraph, or if it covers maybe two of the main ideas of the article, but not all of them, then it's not going to be my correct answer choice. So what I also like to do with these kind of questions is I like to, in my mind, remind myself what this article was mostly about. It was about how sometimes inventions are made through accidents, lucky kind of circumstances, but that the luck and the accidents also combine with people who are hardworking, who are smart and dedicated, and they actually are able to recognize what those accidents are really revealing. And the author illustrated those key ideas by giving the stories of 3 important people and the discoveries that they made. It was Alexander Fleming was one of them, Roentgen was another one, and Goodyear was the third one. So I'm going to really want to look for the summary that kind of ties in all of those key ideas that I just summarized in my head. All right, number 7 is a short response. Explain how the author uses anecdotes or stories to illustrate key ideas of the passage. Use details from the passage to support your answer. So I just want to remind you that when you do a short response, you are looking to write a rough paragraph. And so I've provided you with some sentence frames for support. 1, you're going to restate and answer the question. The author illustrates key ideas by using anecdotes about. What were the anecdotes about, if I had to summarize them? Then I'm going to follow it up with my first piece of evidence. For example, she tells an anecdote about. And so here I'm going to basically summarize as my text evidence one of the anecdotes that she tells. And then I have to explain how that anecdote develops or illustrates a key idea of the passage. So this anecdote develops the key idea of that. So I'm basically almost rephrasing the anecdote. What is it really showing me about the key idea or central idea of this passage? And then I'm going to give my second piece of evidence and my second elaboration. Another anecdote she shares is, and this second anecdote develops the key idea of that. All right, so question 8 is also a form of short response. Here you are going to categorize information. Below is information from paragraphs 5 and 6 of the passage, Luck Favors the Prepared. Organize the information by writing each phrase from the passage into the proper section of the table. Central idea, supporting detail, and example used to make a point. So this is something very similar to what you've done with the multiple choice and the short response in the previous question. You're just looking to determine which one of these statements is central idea, which one is a supporting detail, what's a second supporting detail, and which one is an example that would elaborate on a point that an author is making. All right, and so then finally we have our extended response. So here we're basically talking about writing an essay of some sort. How does the author introduce and illustrate the differences between truly accidental discoveries and those made by hardworking scientists? How does the author feel about the two kinds of discoveries? Write an essay of 2 to 3 paragraphs explaining your answer. Be sure to include examples from the passage in your answer. In your answer, be sure to explain how the author presents the differences between these discoveries. Explain how the author feels about these types of discoveries. Use examples from the passage in your answer. All right, so we've written many essays in class, so we know that when we're writing an essay, we want to always include an introduction and a conclusion. The only times we would ever want to leave out an introductory paragraph or a concluding paragraph is if we were being timed and we were running out of time. So if we were taking the state test, for example, then we saw we only had 15 minutes to write this entire essay, well, then we would skip the introduction and we would make sure that we were just dealing with the bullet points. But when we have enough time, we want it to be a well-organized essay. Well-organized, well-developed essays are the only thing that's going to earn you a score of 4 points for this question on any exam. Now, the first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you do a little brainstorming and you plan out exactly what you're going to write. You want to decide how many paragraphs you're going to have and what exactly the task is asking of you. So when you have the bullet points, like this essay prompt does, it's really pretty easy to organize. You're just going to want to make sure that you treat each bullet point as pretty much its own separate paragraph. That's not the only way to do it, but it is one of the easiest ways to tackle this assignment. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my first paragraph is my introduction, where I have my engaging lead and my thesis. And my thesis is just going to be where I restate the essay prompt. So I'm going to restate that the author introduces and illustrates differences between truly accidental discoveries and those by hardworking scientists, and that the author feels a certain way about the kinds of discoveries. So I'll figure out how I think the author feels, and that will become part of my thesis. All right, so then for paragraph 2, I'm going to actually just take the first bullet point. And so in that paragraph, I'm going to explain how the author presents the differences between these discoveries. Now, just like when I'm writing any essay, my body paragraphs can basically be like short response paragraphs. I can treat them as a wrap paragraph. So how does the author explain the differences? I can take that question and I can restate it as my topic sentence. The author presents differences between these discoveries. One difference is, and I can continue from there. Give the first example of a difference between these two types of discoveries, and then give a second example, a second difference that the author uses between accidental discoveries and hardworking scientists. Paragraph 3 is going to be my next bullet point. So that second bullet point is explain how the author feels about these types of discoveries. Again, I'm going to take this bullet, I'm going to restate it as my topic sentence. How does the author feel? The author feels blank about these types of discoveries. So I have to actually answer that question and make that my topic. And then I have to give my 2 pieces of evidence to actually prove that that answer is correct. The author reveals this perspective when she states what text evidence shows how she feels about these discoveries. And then, of course, I always want to include 2 pieces of evidence. And then finally, I'm going to do paragraph 4, my conclusion, because my third bullet point is basically just telling me what I need to do in all of my paragraphs, or at least all of my body paragraphs. I need to use text evidence.